All right, welcome, Dr. Ukaiko. Should I be, been referring to you as Prof. Ukaiko, but that's our name. But welcome to this session. For those who are new to this channel, we're talking about PhD stories. So we're just reflecting on the PhD journey before, during, and even after, so that if you're a current or a prospective student, there's some lessons you'll pick, you'll be able to learn. So today I have a very special guest. I think I'm going to give an opportunity just to introduce herself, then we can continue. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harry Bett, for this opportunity to join you on your platform today. I'm Ukaiko Ojiambo, otherwise known as Ukaiko Bitrus-Ojiambo. I'm a communication lecturer. I've been teaching for about 2 decades now.
Wow.
I'm also, I could call it a quality assurance enthusiast, faculty developer, author, spouse, auntie, daughter, all the things that make us who we are as a human being. But most importantly, I am a child of God, and I'm excited to be on this platform with you today. Thank you.
Wow. That's beautiful. At the university, what do you teach? Specific, you've said communication, but specific maybe units or courses?
I am just general comms. Well, my background, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, Master's in Communication, and PhD in Communication. So I tend to teach right now our human communication areas, speaking, writing, um, general courses. I have taught in the past theory, um, public relations. Actually, my master's is actually in the public relations area, but
Okay.
I don't really specialize in it in terms of practice or anything like that. So I could say I'm a Ukaiko of all trades, if that makes sense. I
Interesting,
could do
yeah.
DevCom, but actually my area is really in media analysis, cultural analysis. Those are my interest areas, and that's what took me through to the PhD level. But my training is actually in PR and possibly a bit of development communication.
Wow. That's interesting. And now that you mentioned writing, maybe I'm just interested in getting your thoughts about scholarly writing. I think sometimes you handle that. Just your thoughts?
Well, it is quite it's a joy and a pain, if I may call it that. And I think
Why?
as I was thinking about this conversation, I kept thinking, this may be a running thread throughout this whole conversation. Joys and sorrows. And I think when I think about academic writing and teaching writing, it's such an important skill. I always tell my students, in communication, our words are our tools. So I struggle to find and understand why and how a student can come to study communication, but something is missing in their ability to articulate themselves, both in spoken forms, in written forms. You can teach a lot of the writing skills. It takes that learning curve is very steep. It's actually a very challenging course. It's an exciting course. It's one that I think if you have it being taught at your university, you're actually at an advantage, because I know in some of the universities here, it's not really being taught. So ours is actually a unit that it's a common course for all the students who come to do the undergraduate course. So I really wonder if they value the skills that are being taught. So they have information literacy in there. They learn about how to access online content, how to write, how to edit, how to come up with your own topic, all those things. And we're fighting with, paper mills, AI, somebody just not wanting to engage. And maybe, I don't know if it's not wanting to engage, but I don't see the level of growth that I would expect if somebody actually went through a course. And I think it's something we're still grappling with as lecturers who teach that unit. But it's one that's so important because, as you know, writing at this level never really changes. Once you start learning from your undergrad, you just build on the different forms, the different methods, and even the different places where the writing is needed. So scholarly writing may be a little different from academic writing, but what you find is that it's just about learning how to adhere to style guides. And even after you think you've adhered, when somebody edits, as we saw when we did our thesis or our dissertation, you actually need that technical writer to actually go through the document again. So I appreciate that writing is a process, writing is growth, but I wish we'd see a little more um, keenness in the parts of the students, especially. I'm saying this because maybe we teach them in first year, first semester when they should take the course. By the time they're doing 4 year projects, it's like zero impact. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. I don't know if you ever had that experience. And that's where I come from with that joy and sorrow narrative. And I wish they would see the joy. And sometimes I meet my students who have graduated from undergrad, now they're doing masters in another university. And now this is when they thank me for what they learned in academic writing. And I'm like, yeah, because actually it doesn't really change. All the change is what you're expected to, the output, um, uh, maybe your lit review, those kinds of things, and maybe how you format, what sections you put in your work. Of course, when you have scholarly writing, then whoever you're submitting to is just about adhering to those guidelines and putting together your work in a way that is not just about editing, but really we know that communication, if you leave all those other elements in there, becomes noise. It gets in the
Yeah,
way of somebody understanding what you're saying. It gets in the way of clarity. It's even part of your branding. So those are
yeah,
all the things I wish people would really take into consideration. I don't know if I
yeah.
answered your question
No, 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 no. You
in
have
that sense,
extensively
but I
answered.
kind of I wove in different aspects of how I feel and what I think about academic
Yeah,
writing, and
yeah,
especially also scholarly writing.
yeah. And I notice, but anyway, let's not go that direction because it'll be a very interesting lecture. But let's get to your PhD because again, this channel is mainly focused on our PhD stories. And maybe you can just begin to introduce to us what was your PhD in, which institution, and just a brief about your PhD journey.
Okay, thank you for this question. I think it's something that I'm beginning to find that it's getting easier to share, and I'm finding a better way to express it and explain it to people.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied for a PhD in communication at Daystar University, which is the premier communication university in Kenya. So it has been a joy to have been part of the cohort I was in the second cohort, which started in 2011. So graduating in 2023 means that it took me 12 years to complete the program. That being said, I'll talk about that maybe a little later about the completion. But I started at a time when I think I just started a new job, and I was required to be full on at work, and I was full on in the PhD program. So I think what happened is that we went through the course really rigorously and vigorously, and I think I had like two more classes to do here. They call them units. I had two more classes to do before how the program is structured. Then you do your comprehensives, then you work on your proposal, then you defend it, and hopefully you complete. So the program is structured for 4 years. Um, I think if you follow the map, the guide that they give. So what happened is that I started my PhD, kind of got burnt out after 2 years, had a few health challenges along the way. So what happened is that then it made sense for me to pull out of the program. So I actually wrote officially and had a stop to my program, so
Oh,
that when I
oh.
came back, then I could keep counting the years going forward. I think that was really helpful. I think in terms of course progression. What I also did was I then came back to complete my two classes, and I think between coming back to complete the two classes, I actually started looking for other programs to go to.
A PhD program as
So
well, PhD
along the way,
programs.
I asked myself, why would I do another PhD program in the UK and some in the US as well? And I found some, but then I asked myself, why not just finish what I started? I'm so close to the end. Why am I trying to push myself back into coursework again, and or whatever the program requirements might be out there, sorry. So I decided to come back to the Daystar program and complete the two classes. I think that's where we met in one of the classes. I don't know if it's two of the classes, but one of the classes. And so after that, then it was a whole other I think I just felt like drained. And I again asked myself, do I really want to go back to finish it at Daystar? So what happened is then I had to just, I don't know, call on God or strength or whatever inside me to
Yeah.
go back to do the comprehensives. And when I did that, I realized that I had people who were examining me that may not have taught me because I've been in the program for so long. So I found a good group of people, you being included, and some of the people we studied with, um, Betsy, uh, uh, um, uh, remind me their names. Why are they going? Josephine, the other Josephine, yourself. I'm giving
Yes.
shout outs, right? Um,
Yes, yes.
the cohort that studied at Strathmore was so important for me to do that because it helped me understand the thinking and how people were thinking through the topics. As an adult learner, it's important to talk through your whatever you're learning. And then it just put me in study mode after being away from coursework for so long. And it really helped me focus really, really keenly in the 5 areas that we have for the comprehensives. I want to say glory to God. I passed the comps, and then now is the journey of finding a supervisor. So I had a main supervisor. I needed a second one, writing different people, not getting responses in time, having a concept paper that was okay, but then realizing that the data would not be easily accessible. So I had to
Mhm.
start all over again. So those are some of the delays in terms of getting the proposal out. And then I don't know what happened in the thesis writing process. I just disengaged from the university, from my supervisors. So one of my other supervisors, Prof. Langmia, as you know, came in and walked with me and pushed me almost every day, asking me for chapters. And I asked myself, am I this? Who am I? And you go through all these existential
Yeah. Questions.
processes and questions. And it's like a mirror. You're looking yourself in the mirror and saying, am I really like
Mhm.
this? But
Mhm.
hey, I thank God that he was really there. And I thank God even for the faculty in the School of Communication who actually also supported me, my examiners, of course, and just that people kept asking, so are you done? Are you almost done? Are you coming back?
Mhm.
Good
Mhm.
to see you finishing the stage. So there were many cheerleaders on the sidelines, friends and
Yeah.
family, of course, but even from Daystar itself. So, in a nutshell, from that long narrative, when I did an audit of my transcript later, I realized that actually I was in the program for 7 active years, actively 7 years, because you can
Mhm.
trace your coursework, you can trace the comms, you can trace proposal and all that. So I'd say
Ah,
it was about 7 years, but in totality, from when you start and when you get your degree, of course, student
yeah.
number included, and then when you get your certificate, I mean, have been called 12 years. So
Okay.
that journey was
Interesting.
winding. It was not as straightforward as I thought it would have been. Of course, everybody goes in when they tell you it's 3 years or 4 years. You think, oh, well, of course I'll do it. And then you look at other people who are stuck in there for so long and wonder what's with them. But then you realize the PhD journey is an individual journey.
Mhm.
It's also a journey of growth and development. And if you have the right mix, as it were, um, you know, maybe determination. Of course, it's not that people are not determined, but I think, excuse me, realizing the level of determination and grit and mindset that you need to have to complete the journey, I think is something I learned um, maybe from comps. Then I forgot a bit and then came back when it was time to do the proposal and final defense. So um,
Mm.
yeah, I feel like there's growth, but you also have to really rely on your peace of mind being key,
Mhm.
relying on your faith and just hanging on to those aspects of faith that we know we should hang on to. But when it's time to do the thesis, something happens, the dissertation. So I keep calling it thesis because at my university, it's called a PhD thesis, but in Daystar, it's called a dissertation. I think some
Dissertation.
institutions
Yeah.
use the terms interchangeably, but writing that dissertation is life changing. It's also changing your mind, what you think about learning, what you think about writing, and even
Mhm.
what you think about that process. So I think it is something that people shouldn't take lightly, but also I
Mhm.
think it's important to draw on the support system around you, not being afraid to reach out to people, not being afraid to say you don't know. I think one of the earliest conversations I had with my supervisor when I came up with my concept and I presented everything, he asked me, "So do you already know the answer?" Or I said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm just because it seemed like when when I was presenting the work, it's like, this is what I want to do and it's done. So he asked me, Professor Bondi is like, so do you have the answer? Do you know? I was like, no, that's what I'm studying. Then he said, okay, good. Now, I think I carried that kind of piece, that nugget with me throughout the journey.
And the curiosity also.
Myself, yes, like, I don't have the answer. I'm trying to get the answer to something here. I'm trying to, so I studied African comedy, and I was trying to see how Africans communicate who they are and their identity today through the comedy shows that were, available. I went and actually watched one performance. So it just was something that I kept asking myself, do I have the answer yet? Do I know yet? No, I don't. I kept going through. And that was a good perspective to take that. And also it's good for a student to know that when you're on that journey and when you're being guided by supervisors or examiners, really at the end of the day, it's good to just have that open mind. I think one of the things I struggled with was being told I had to go watch a real life comedy show. I was like, why?
I already
because
know.
also maybe my philosophical paradigm is that you can know by observation, right? But I'm actually using a qualitative study. It's a qualitative perspective, so I actually needed to be immersed in that environment. So I was glad and I was grateful that I was pushed to do it because it adds another level of depth. And I realized that saying that you're doing something or learning to be a learner, because a PhD, a lot of people say it's a research degree, but what is research? I think it's just being a learner, being willing to learn different tools, methods, learning the in vivo, heard about it, thought I knew it. And then here I was being immersed in that tutorials. Then I had a laptop here, I borrowed another one. And then I was like, okay, they said do this, I do that. They said do this. Okay, then looking at my notes, okay, what am I keying in? So I was like really learning to learn and being willing to be a learner under a lot of pressure, intense pressure. So maybe that's the second thing I would say, that with the PhD and especially the research itself, the dissertation, there's a lot of pressure, and it's pressure that you would never ever imagine you can make it through. But yes, you will make it through. We have all been roasted through the fire. We're here now. You'll make it, you'll also make it. So I would say that that's something else I saw, that you really do need to be open to seeing that topic from another perspective, open to the experiences that your topic will take you through, because everybody's topic is different, everybody's area is different, everybody's paradigm is different, and depending on what you're actually studying, being open to that brings the strength and the depth of your study, if you get my meaning.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a qualitative response. In depth.
I've been told that I am wordy.
You're qualitative. Okay. But I'd also love you to tell us more about there's something you mentioned that I think some students can resonate with, the aspect of, you begin, then there is a pause, then you continue. Because not so long ago I met a student who told me that she had started on a PhD, then at some point she actually finished coursework, and then she experienced trouble during the research bit. And I think it took quite a while that she decided to go and start afresh in another institution. So I suppose it's someone who's watching this and is thinking, wow, is there hope for me, to pick up from where I left? So I think you're the best placed person to speak to that situation.
I think nowadays we live in a world, this postmodern world, where people always ask yourself your why. Have you heard that statement? What is your why? What is your motivation? I don't think there's a cut and paste answer to that. Like, should you move or shouldn't you move? Stick it through. Everybody has a different goal, maybe even different expectations, and even different support systems. So I think it's just really good to always have a self-reflective kind of I don't want to call it personality, but just to have the ability to once in a while ask yourself those hard questions. When I started my master's, actually, maybe just to tell you a story, I
Mhm.
started in Daystar for a year, and then I felt like this is not what I expected communication to be or what I wanted out of a communication program. Nothing wrong with a master's program in Daystar. It is just what I did in reflection. My family was able to sacrifice and send me abroad to do my master's, and I was grateful for that opportunity because that's the experience I
So you
wanted.
you stopped this one, then you went abroad.
Yes, yes. And what I did is I realized that, you can transfer units. So I did some of the courses I thought were transferable here. And actually, when I went there, they let me transfer. I don't remember, it was 6 credit hours or 12. So I did a whole year's coursework here, and I was able to transfer some of those credit hours into my program over there.
Oh, interesting.
That was helpful. That was helpful. So, and I really wanted to study out there to understand communication from another perspective. Having done my undergrad in Kenya, I wanted a different experience. And the opportunity came. I told you I wanted to change my PhD, but I didn't have the financial wherewithal like my parents did when they helped me go. Here I am working, but I'm not able to. I wasn't able to do that, or I could have, but I thought it was just too much of a strain. And why not just finish what I had started? So I would say that it's really good to do reflection and just do an analysis of your situation. If you have opportunities or resources are out there for you to actually go and start afresh,
Mhm.
then you have to figure out why you didn't finish here. Because when you go out there, who is to say that you'd finish? That's what I would say, right?
Mhm.
So with that self-reflection, it helps you be honest. It helps you really get to see what's going on, and then when you're out there, you learn from the I don't want to call them mistakes, but you learn from what happened here so that out there you are shy here, you are not doing the readings, you are not asking questions. When you
Mhm.
go there, people will not understand that personality. Are you willing
Sure.
to change and adapt and to be more open and maybe approach your supervisors or your faculty more? Because I felt like here, um, I didn't approach my faculty maybe in the way that I could or should have. And maybe when I studied for my master's, I was more open, that kind of thing. So it just depends. Everybody has a different story. If
Okay.
you're finding that you're able to, because sometimes going back to the same program is actually, there was a time when I felt traumatized actually. And maybe that's why it took so long to come back.
Mhm.
And
Were you?
that thing is just like it's an internal thing. I can't put my
Mhm.
finger. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm saying I, Ukaiko, a Bitrus-Ojiambo, felt a bit traumatized by the process of getting the PhD. So
Wow.
I think it's important to actually do self-reflection. And when I came back, I just said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna park that that emotion, and I'm going to just say what needs to be done. What is it that I need to do? Let me do it.
Mhm.
So whatever works for people, I wouldn't say don't start a new program. People have started and completed.
Mhm.
People even move in Kenya, go to other universities and complete. So it's up to you, but just know what you want out of your PhD program and stick to it once you're there. I think it's important to have that ability to stick to something once you've started it. If not,
Yeah.
you'll have something like we call it chip on your shoulder throughout your life. You'll be like, I should have, I could have, I would have,
Mhm.
and who wants to have that as a narrative that they carry with them? And that's one of my mentors actually told me when I told her, hey, I'm trying to just complete. I've done the proposal and I was somehow kind of stuck in implementing. And she said, no, 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 no. You must finish your PhD. This time we don't. You've taken too long. At the very end, don't give up. And I think that was so helpful to me, having that person as a mentor who is a medical professional, but always speaks those words of encouragement in my life and to me, and that really
Yeah.
helps.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. And we will still come back to the support system and and anything else that helped you in your PhD journey. But at this point, I want also you to just to go back to for someone who is in communication, maybe just briefly describe your area of study. You've talked about comedy, but maybe give us a snapshot of your study. So this was the area, this is how I went about collecting data. These were the key findings. Just in brief, enlighten someone about your area of focus.
Okay, so the thesis, what the dissertation actually was titled ethnic humor. an exploratory study. It was an exploratory study, um, looking at the contemporary Africanness in contemporary times through three comedy shows. So what I did was well, first of all, I observed that a lot of Africans were actually using comedy with the rise of the internet, and comedy was has always been there,
Mm-hmm.
and especially stand-up comedy was the area that I looked at. I wanted to see what were they really doing when they were sharing those stories about each other themselves, which is we Africans. What were we doing when we were sharing studies about stories about ourselves? Was it just for the fun of it? Because a lot of times, and the literature shows that comedy and jokes and humor really isn't really taken seriously because of the entertainment effect, and people assume that when you're telling jokes about each other or about people, that you would stereotype, and somehow the stereotypes are acceptable, they're accepted when people hear jokes about each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to see, were were the comedians really doing something? Was there a role they were taking? Because in the literature you find that comedians were seen to be sometimes to be people who um, brought about social change. You know how in the past, maybe it's an assumed thing, but in the past African culture, you say if you did something bad, people would mock you,
Mm-hmm.
or and mocking is part of humor. When people tell jokes, they mock
Yeah.
others, so it's comparable. So if you did something bad, people would kind of laugh at you or tell a story to help change your behavior. So comedy actually worked in that kind of way in some
Mm-hmm.
contexts. In the African continent, people would actually say that the humor on television, for example, was used in sitcoms, and what it did is it brought light on social issues so that people could see what, like almost like activism. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
it's a long stretch, but that's what people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Then you find that a lot of times people also think that comedians are just there to mock, and that came from the Greek literature, uh, and that's what you see in satirical comedy, satirical shows like uh, Trevor Noah, some those kinds of shows, the ones like when he was on the main show, was it late night or those late night shows and those kind of shows. Well, what they would do is that on Comedy Central, also they had some shows where what they would do is actually mock and probably even uh, demonstrate social gaps
Mm-hmm.
in society through whatever they're talking, or maybe have parodies about what's going on in society. So I wanted to see when our own Africans in today, this in our time, are sharing their jokes. What is it that they're showing us about our society? Because at the end of the day, comedy does talk about the real issues that come out. Is that comedy does show us the social structures that constrain us, and then it reveals to us the power dynamics. So I wanted to see, so are these comedians even conscious? The first question: what role are they really playing in society? Are they just entertaining us, or do they have a certain role? Do they see themselves as having a role? One of the biggest issues with comedy is that it is packaged entertainment. There's a political economy aspect, as in, they are media owners. Um, Although nowadays things are streamed, but when you watch something online, people have certain interests that they protect. So some comedy, doesn't make it in the public domain. And what I found is that when I now went to these particular collectives that had comedy shows, there was another level of comedy content that was being shared there that was really more extreme, more provocative towards the political state structure, and even more taboo related, like topics, and just asking myself, where have I landed? So you begin to see that comedy has no barriers, and even the literature shows that um, it's almost like freedom of speech should not be curtailed. So comedians feel like if you curtail them, then comedy always has to have a voice. If not, you can then not critique what happens in society. A lot of times,
Interesting.
what happens
Yeah.
in comedy, of course, there's like communication. So there's what is stated, then there's a manifest, then there's a latent meaning. The real meaning is hidden through metaphors, through the different things and the different ways that people actually express themselves. That's
Yeah.
excuse me.
Sorry.
That's actually where the meanings are. So my findings generally show that the comedians were entertaining, but they also saw themselves as professionals. They saw themselves as not being paid equally to other musicians, like other entertainers, like musicians, like the Davidos of the world. They kind
Mhm.
of felt like they were like, I don't want to call them step kids, but like they're in the family, but they just didn't feel like they were really in the family.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course they also were like celebrities because there's a lot of them on those main comedy platforms are the ones
Yeah.
that people use to endorse products, or they're well known and recognized now all around the world because of social media.
Mhm.
So they found out they also were comparing themselves and saying it's like they knew they're celebrities and yet they knew that they were doing something else, helping us kind of be a mirror of society and even to be our own mirrors and our own reflectors. And with
Yeah.
comedians, there's no I don't know, I want to say like they say there's no honor amongst thieves, you know. There's no protection of a comedian. If you laugh at the joke, they can turn around and laugh at you and make fun of you and make poke fun at something, of you right then and
Mhm.
there, which I saw in the live show, and they did it even on the clips I watched. So the comedians
Yeah.
themselves are really, really the artists. They are on platforms that kind of structure what they say and how they say. So in a way, it feels like it's natural that they're telling us about our lives and our society, but in a way, it's packaged. So that's the push and pull of really looking in that space. Then what do we then allow in the public domain? Because
Mhm.
comedy is like a platform. It works like television. So you begin to find that it's like if we allow certain topics and certain jokes to go on, then we allow certain kinds of knowledge to perpetuate and be part of what our society gets shaped by. So that's why you get now when
Interesting.
you look at ethnic humor, then if
Mhm.
we allow ourselves to keep joking about, of course, we know stereotypes are there, and stereotypes are just a way to help us communicate something quicker, faster. If we talk about the typology, so you
Mhm.
know that if we're saying, you're from an ethnic community, maybe they say you're runners. I'm a Nigerian. I don't know what they say about us. So we have those stereotypes, and
Mhm.
sometimes we laugh about them. But the danger, of course, with stereotypes is we know is when it becomes something that becomes default, and also when people are not critically engaging with what they're hearing. A
Yeah.
lot of times people will condone even racism, even ethnicity, negative ethnicity in a
Mhm.
joke in
Sadly.
the name of it being a joke. That is where the danger lies. When we allow the complacency and we're not critical. But if not, of course, there's a wide space and a lot happens in the comedy. I found that a lot of mocking behavior was there. They mocked anyone and everyone from preachers, parents, spouses, themselves, people in the audience, politicians, uh, anything and everybody is fair game for the storytelling. They use a lot of metaphors, stereotypes. Nigerians are like this, Kenyans are like this, Ugandans
Mhm.
are like this, Americans are like this. So I also found what I did was I also one of the questions I also was looking at was what are the boundaries that they were creating through the humor. So a lot of
Mhm.
times, again with ethnic humor inherently has those stereotypes. So what happens is then people start talking about themselves they create in group and out group categories and boundaries. And so they used the stories and the characters in the stories to create the boundaries, but they also use stereotypes to create the boundaries. They use the humor to create the boundaries. Anything and everything. It was fluid. It was so quick. It actually I saw it as a craft and an art that they are the ones I studied are actually the top of the game. They really are masters of the craft of storytelling through comedy. And what they did is, so for example, I studied Nigerian comedians, Kenyan comedian, Ugandan comedians. And so I realized that when they, of course, when they were talking in different
Sorry,
contexts,
so
when
it
they
was
were,
in different contexts. So you went to the different countries, or you were studying them within one context.
no, so I did a visual analysis. I did a visual analysis.
Aha. Okay.
So looked at some online comedy shows on a particular platform. So
Mm-hmm.
the platform was very stable. They would come on and do their skits. Then there might be entertainment in the middle. Somebody else would come on. And so I just looked at some of the clips. I did a purpose sampling, and I looked at some of the clips and what they were talking about. So I realized that a lot of times the boundaries that they created were very interesting. So, for example, I was trying to explain. They would talk about Africans and either talk about the Africanness in terms of being an African in your country and talk about how it is, and they would talk about status quo, how things are. Then they would talk about Africans in diaspora or even just life in an imagined diaspora. And that's where the jokes would be. Then they would talk about Africans from diaspora who came back and they'd create more boundaries between themselves. And now this is a diaspora Nigerian, but now we'll mock him because he doesn't fit in when he comes, or he has expectations that don't fit in with our reality. So sorry, that's what I found that they were doing in a lot of the shows. So the African that they painted was one who was a city dweller, a village dweller, which fit into the theory. The main theory that I was testing was Langmia 2018's theory of the African mulatto theory of communication. So in that theory, it brings out what is the African context. So what does an African, who is the African, and how does he operate in in life today? So a lot of Africans are connected to the villages, but they're also city dwellers who live in what he calls a um, pseudo African city. It's a pseudo Western African city. So we emulate the West. So that's why we even have comedy shows that look like theirs, stand-up comedy shows that look very much like theirs.
Yeah.
However, when we're talking about our stories, we are talking about our realities, which are
Yeah.
different from theirs. We may try to copy and tell stories like them, but really
Mm-hmm.
we are telling our own reality,
Stories.
our own structures. We are mocking our ourselves. We are laughing at ourselves, and we are really talking about all the comedy sketches actually talked about dysfunctional 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 African society. So
Interesting.
that was interesting.
Interesting.
So those are some of the findings.
Interesting. That's a very interesting study, and I'm sure some of your works or even the dissertation at some point will be up for those who will be interested in reading more about it. But now let's go back to your PhD journey, and just looking back. Apart from, you mentioned support system being helpful to you, I don't know what other aspects of the journey, or what else helped you in your journey, and also looking back at your journey, what what would you have done differently? How would you have made the journey even more manageable, if I am to ask? So what helped you apart from the support system, and what else would you have improved, so to speak?
Okay, thank you. So what helped me, I think, is I realized that there wasn't much of a support system locally, just because everybody is busy. We're already working. We're doing our own things. So when people reached out, previous students who had finished in the program reached out, I would gladly hang out with them and learn from them. Just sometimes even just having a coffee with a friend to talk and vent, even if it's not about a PhD, that helped. Because sometimes you get so focused, I'm doing my PhD, you stop even interacting with people. So I thought it was important to do that once in a while. I
Mm.
also was able to create my own community of support or find one online. Actually, two or three. So some videos that I watched, joined some Facebook groups of PhD, like-minded individuals like myself. There's actually one called OWL, Older Wiser Learners. The mascot
Interesting.
is an owl, and so it's very interesting. And that group, we walked with each other from comps until people were actually finishing their dissertations and
Wow.
posting online. It was so exciting. Always
Wow.
seeing them finish, also thinking and having hope that one day that would be me. And indeed, I can't believe that I actually posted, and they were really
Mm.
supportive and my study as well. And it was interesting because then we'd watch and read each other, and it was on Facebook. So of course, and at some point I had to stop when I was doing the dissertation itself. I had to stop um, chatting and watching and reading what they were posting. But when I finished, then I came back and explained where I had gone, and we're still communicating. So that's
Wow.
something that I found was helpful. So support systems are really good. It's also good to have let people know that the kind of support you need, because you might need time off, or if you used to meet people every weekend, like I have a family situation where people met every week. So I had to kind of say, okay, I'll meet once a month, not all the Sundays, because actually I needed to just immerse myself in this thing. So of course, if there were birthdays, I'll try to go, for that one day, but knowing full well that okay, that for the next 3 weeks you're not gonna see me. So that's how it had to be. Um, so I think being immersed in the world of research is very important. So another thing that really helped me was having what we had through our program, the research seminars that took place every Saturday for like 13 weeks. That was so important. Having guest speakers. That's how I found my second supervisor actually, because I'd never met him before. So when he came on those programs as a guest speaker, I was like, oh my goodness. I Googled him and I saw he's doing studies in kind of my area. So he would be able to help me in my area. So that's how I found my second supervisor. So being open to um, going into those spaces to learn more. I think we know research because we studied it, but now when we get to hear it from somebody else or in a different way, it really helps. So I'd say finding those videos online that help you immerse yourself in research is important, or joining those webinars. Nowadays we have them and have access to them. It would be important to just keep being in that space because that helps. That was like my support system in a way. What would I do differently if I had a chance to? I think it would just be to go back a little earlier to have done the comps, because again, as I said, I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the program. So I would have just gone back immediately. Of course, I had some trauma that I really had to work through. I went for counseling actually. That also helped me, I think, to be able to overcome a lot of my own personal issues. But I think I would have gone back to the program a lot sooner and engaged a lot sooner on my topic. I think changing topics was also something that kind of slowed me down. So I would recommend that students begin reading in the area of their thesis. And I think when we think we're reading during coursework, we think we're reading, but we're really not reading. I realized that the reading you need to do for your dissertation is a totally different kind of method, kind of skill that I would recommend. Again, just having that openness of being willing to learn, being a learner, being open to seeing it differently. Um, so, and I think you have a lot of workshops that help students with that. So if they would be part of that, I think that would really help. So would I have done something differently, really? I think apart from maybe also just allowing people to see my work sooner. One thing that happened is that two people reached out to me, actually three of my friends who are academics, and I allowed them to see the work at different stages. One was very, very early. That helped me put together the concept paper.
Mhm.
Uh, then when I was preparing for a proposal defense, they both gave me comments. One is an education person. I think the other is in, I don't know if it's like engineering or something. But it was so important for them to get an eye on it. Yes, they said, yeah, your field may be different, but research is research. So they're able to point me to certain things that was so helpful. That gave me, you can call it wings to fly. Felt good. The dissertation journey is so lonely. So, you can feel,
Yeah.
do I really know what I know? You know,
Mhm.
really good when people encourage you, and I felt like them looking at the document. Of course, they poked holes in it actually, but then verbally they told me, "Wow, I liked your writing. I could read and understand." So I was like, "Oh, I'm a good writer." Of course, by the end of the dissertation, I had a lot hefty editing to do, but guess what? Guess what? It pumped my ego and it helped me feel
Mhm.
like, okay, they're academics and they're saying, and they supervise and they're saying I write well. So it helped me, feel like, I got something. It's good to be your own hype master. It's good to be your own hype master on this journey. I found that putting together notes to remind myself I'm God's child. I got this. Yeah, I'm not a quitter. Never, never quit. Anything that can help you, a verse that can help, anything was so important. I felt like
Mm,
I found one that was a meme. I love memes. Someone said, push your limit. So I had that at some point. I was like, push my limit, push it. Sometimes it's hard. Even when another mentor told me one day, push through, push through. And so those are the words when I felt stuck, I'll tell myself and find that strength. But beyond that,
yeah,
I find that if I were to do it again, I would really have exposed my writing and my thesis, my chapters to somebody else
yeah.
who I would trust to not get my work because it's going to be examined. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be asked for examination. I see in your Turnitin report this was already submitted somewhere. So be wise and be wise in who you share your work with, of course. But I was able to share with people who I could trust, and I knew they would just look at it and give it back with comments, which they did, track changes and then verbal comments. That is something I would say I would have done sooner.
Interesting. Interesting. And maybe as we come to a close, I don't know if you what other pieces of advice you would give to a prospective or even a current student, current PhD student, parting shot, what would you advise them with respect to their PhD journey?
So I would say keep the faith. I found that at the end of the day, when I defended, and even during the defense, especially the last defense, I felt like maybe I don't know how to say the words or use the language of academia, but I knew that this study is in my heart. It's in my heart. It's like God put it there. I mean, if you ask me why I didn't do another study, it's not me. Everybody has that thing that they feel drawn to, and they feel like this is my purpose, or this is what I'm interested in. As you go through the journey, not everybody will understand it. Nobody will even care. Some people have told me that, and I realized that at the end of the day, you are the one who cares about your dissertation. You're the
Sure.
one who cares about the topic. This is your study area.
Yeah.
There's something in it that only you can do. Not that other people can do this study but as you go through the process, I mean, I know your studies. I listen to your defense, but it's not something I would say it's interesting. It's knowledgeable. But if somebody had said, go into a program, we'll pay for you to go to the US and we'll pay for you to do that topic, guess what, Harry? It would not be a motivator to me because no shade, that is not my passion area. You get that, right? In fact, my master's thesis was actually looking at the Cosby Show. So it's a comedy area. Comedy is not something I studied when I joined the PhD program. You understand, right? So I'd say stick to your calling. The calling, stick to it. Whatever you feel you're doing is important to you. Don't second guess yourself. Remember, I said earlier, you're learning something about that topic. You're learning something. You're in the field to learn. So learn it. Sometimes it might have to be that you just have to be humble. I think one of the first times we heard from one of the speakers, I think it was Professor Langmia also, is that be humble. Go to your supervisors with humility. I wrote that as a note. Be humble. I mean, you actually have to say to yourself, because you have that I'm doing a PhD. No,
Mm-hmm.
be humble. Be humble because you're there to learn. You're there to be guided. Whatever
Yeah.
happens, be humble. Whatever happens, stick to it. Stick to it. That's what I would say. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. As people of hope and faith, don't give up. And there will be joy. Said joy and sorrow. Sometimes there's sorrow in the toil when you're alone or you're doing your work. You don't have guidance, or you feel like you can't do it. Or who? Many times I ask myself, who asked me to do this thing? Ask yourself the why, but don't give up because there's something that you were created for in this world. And it's not even just the PhD to defend and be called doctor. It's not even about that.
Sure.
There are more opportunities ahead, and I believe this is just a stepping stone. So you're on this journey for a reason. You started for a reason. Complete it. What are your milestones? Work through them. If you can, work faster. If you need help, ask for help. But don't sit there alone. Guess what? Everybody who's gone through a PhD program went through very hard, maybe even more difficult paths, but somehow they overcame and they made it. So you can't overcome if you give up. That's what I'd say.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Ukaiko.
Thank
That's
you.
very insightful. That's really great. And I'm sure it's interesting to know that you were doing the same for your master's and PhD. So, and I suppose that's what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
still very passionate about. I'm hoping you're also open to supervising people in that area.
Oh, yes, most definitely. In fact, if our students would be studying comedy and entertainment and performance, that would be an area I'd love to go delve more into. But yes, our programs are not really structured. Our training programs are structured for industry. So media, development studies, I don't know. I've never heard of any other person in Daystar graduating with human communication. I could
I can't
be,
remember.
I could be wrong, but most people do media or development studies or strategic. So it's an area that people don't really delve into, but it would be good to begin to see people coming through doing that.
Interesting, interesting. So I think probably at the end you'll give us your contact so that in case someone wants to reach out to you, or maybe just tell us publicly, people want to find you, how do they, without necessarily
Oh, they can reach me just by phone. How do I get my phone
okay, I'll
number
be able
to
to
them?
put it in the link in the video,
Yes,
maybe
yes,
your contact details after that.
yes. Just my phone number is great because then, I mean, this is a private channel or public, but it doesn't matter. They can always WhatsApp me and I'll be able to get back to them.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so we bring it to a close. Thank you for those who are watching.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm hoping you learned something from the story of Dr. Ukaiko. I'm always learning and laughing from her stories. She's such a storyteller. And it was great having you today on this channel. So if you're new here, make sure you have liked, subscribe, share with your PhD groups. Sometimes what you need, someone's story is able to just to help you to get out of it. So you're not alone. The challenges we've gone through, we learn from them. So thank you so much, Dr. Ukaiko. Have a great, great time and all the best.
Thank you. The honor has been mine. Thanks so much, Dr. Harry. You're doing such a great job supporting PhDs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Most welcome. Bye-bye.